Down play. Let's get back.
Now, as I had earlier promised to that discussion, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa and Egypt remain Africa's big four when it comes to funding, accounting for 77% of funded startups at 89.2% of total investment in 2020. Now, this is according to the 6th edition of the annual African Tech Startups Funding Report 2020, released by Startup News and Research Portal Disrupt Africa. Nigeria had the most funded startups at 85, followed by Egypt with 82 and South Africa with 81. Kenya had 59 funded startups, but leads when it comes to combined raised capital at over $190 million in funding in 2020. Now we want to have this conversation, and joining me to discuss this is Shapiro, who is the CEO and founder of Usiku Games. Thank you very much for joining us here on Bottom Line Africa. I'll just start with the whole COVID-19 pandemic and the situation that it has caused. So many people are jobless right now. People have ideas because now people are looking to entrepreneurship, but they don't really know how to implement them. How should one go about it?
Yeah, so, Winston Churchill once said that never waste a crisis. And that's absolutely been true in the startup scene in sub-Saharan Africa. As you mentioned, the record fundings that happened last year, over $700 million particularly in tech startups across the region. And people, are suffering, absolutely, but they're also looking for distraction, looking for some amusement, and so the startup scene has really grown over the last year. And for people who want to get into it, now's a great time. There's some amazing funders who are now really looking at the sub-Saharan Africa startup scene. The number of funders went up by 46% last year. And so you have, VCs and funders like Keppel Africa and Sherpa Ventures that have started to come into the region and really looking at the smaller startups and how we can get them going and past that hump to become real businesses.
All right, even when you talk about that hump, most startups have the challenges of financing and, starting up and setting up. But most of them don't even get to their second year of the birthday, of second year anniversary after starting up that business. So then how do you progress?
Yeah, I think I find the first year or two in any startup, whatever sector they're in, is like being in a dark room and you're fumbling around trying to find the light switch. And then at some point, you find it and you turn on and then you're set. And that's really what that first year is like for a business, where you need to find what your business model is, really understand the customers, recruit and select your talent, and get to that point where you then have sustainability in the business model so that you can then grow.
All right, so then how do we use technology to scale up for those startups that are watching?
Yeah, so technology is interesting. It helps on both sides. So certainly in terms of the actual business models and the products, there are so many great digital businesses, particularly in Kenya, that have launched over the last few years, and that's really creating a lot of economic opportunities for new jobs. But also it's making it a lot easier for those businesses to do their businesses, where so much is online in terms of accounting systems and HR and all the operations, so that it's so much easier and cheaper these days to really get your business to scale than it ever was in the past.
All right, let's talk about the gaming industry. You are specifically in this industry. Before even we look at Africa in general, how is it doing in Kenya? Because most people tend to avoid it.
No, now's a really great time to be in gaming and for the gaming industry. And to be clear, 82% of people who play games, particularly on their mobile phones, don't identify as gamers with a capital G. That's a very different sector. Okay. We're going after really the consumers who are sitting in a matatu and are bored and just want to play a game. And for that segment, it's an amazing time. In sub-Saharan Africa, there's 350 million connected smartphones already. They're projecting to be 680 million in the next 4 years. And just to put that in context, in the US market, there's only 240 million, and that's growing at 1%. So it's a really amazing time in Africa to be looking at gaming, and it's going to be huge.
So what are the challenges that are mostly faced in the gaming industry?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is talent. You know, despite the fact that the market opportunity here is so much larger than really almost anywhere else in the world. There's only 3 markets in the world that can have 1 billion game players. That's China, India, and Africa, and those markets are already tied up. But in the US, the gaming industry employs 240,000 people, and in Sub-Saharan Africa, it's like less than 1,000. So finding that talent, training them, mentoring them, and having them come up and have the professional managers to run those businesses, that's really the challenge.
So where do you find the talent?
Well,
I'm curious.
Yeah, there's some great schools like ADMI that have partnered with Rubica, for sure. There's a lot of mentoring. There's some foreign talent that have come into Africa and are doing those mentorships, and a lot of Kenyans who have gone overseas to study, learned game design at universities, and coming back.
All right, that's interesting. So if you look at the future of gaming, for example, 1 year down the line, where do you see it?
So Africa is all about mobile gaming. So that's absolutely the focus. And I think that's, as we look and see more devices coming online, things like the KaiOS phones and those hundreds of millions of new devices coming online and new people playing games for the first time, we're going to see a lot of investment coming from the international Western players really coming in. And that's why we're building what's called the Pan-African Gaming Group to start expanding across the continent.
All right. Even as we look at the gaming sector right now, what kind of games are usually, expected? How do people come up with these games? Because, I, for one, I'm curious. I want to know. So do you see it? How does the idea come up? If you could explain that for us.
Sure. Well, gaming, like anything, is a creative industry. We have all kinds of creative people involved as writers, designers, animators, music composers who do the soundtracks. It's really a creative process. And so the ideation, like any creative industry, takes inspiration. And really what we're focused on is local stories with local heroes, using local music and environments, and making them relevant so that when Kenyans play the games, they see themselves reflected in the game.
Can anyone do this?
Absolutely.
Even I?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down. We run something called the Nairobi Game Development Center. It's in Diamond Plaza, the top 2 floors, and it's a great place to learn about it and to get started in the career.
All right. So even as we wind up, if you look at startups in general, forget about the gaming industry, but if you want, you can include it. What should we expect 3 years down the line? We don't know how COVID is going to be in the next few months. What should we expect and what should we prepare for?
Well, people talk about the new normal, right? The post-COVID world. And the reality is that COVID or not, we still have the reality of the youth demographic bulge that is happening in Kenya and certainly a lot of Africa that's come through. And we need to create 8 million at a minimum new jobs annually to absorb the increased labor market. And the startup world is a great way to do that, where we're actually creating new jobs, creating new economic opportunities.
All right. Thank you very much, Jay Shapiro. They are CEO and founder of Usiku Games, just breaking it down for us. Well, that leads us to a short commercial break here on Bottom Line Africa. I leave you with Destination Africa.